Hello guys. Welcome to my channel. My name is Dev Trend. Today, I am going to do an updated tutorial on the last video tutorial I did, which is called Control OBS using Android or iOS devices with free tools. To see how to create your own OBS remote, click on the icon on the screen or the link in the description. For this tutorial, I am going to show you guys how to connect your OBS audio input and outputs and control them on your Android or iOS devices. And now on to the tutorial. Step 1. Go to the link in the description. Download and install the software, which we will be using to connect audio inputs and outputs. If you have already watched my last video and understand how to create buttons of your remote, you can follow along. If not, please do so before moving on. I have already installed the software, so I will move on to Step 2. Step 2. Routing desktop audio inputs and outputs. Open the program, Voicemeeter. The program interface may look a little confusing at first, but will become much easier to understand during the tutorial. Next, navigate to your control panel, and click on Hardware and Sound. And click on Manage Audio Devices. Here, scroll down and you will see two new inputs called Voicemeeter Auxiliary Input and Voicemeeter Input. These are the inputs we will be using. Now please understand we will be changing the default audio inputs. So whatever application that is using the default inputs will now go through one of these inputs, whether it's a program, software, or game, etc., which sends out an audio signal and can be routed by Voicemeeter. Now click on Voicemeeter Auxiliary Input and set to default and click OK. From here all desktop audio signals will go through Voicemeeter Auxiliary Input. Next, go back to Voicemeeter and test an audio track. Here you will see the signal entering Voicemeeter Auxiliary. Step 3. Routing Voicemeeter audio inputs. But first, a little information about the Voicemeeter interface. There are 3 hardware inputs, which means whatever physical device you have plugged into your system, whether a microphone or an audio device, you click on any of the hardware inputs and select it to use it. Whereas the 2 virtual inputs, which does the same thing, but only 2 as an audio device that is driven by a driver, where most of the time will be an Asio driver, which links virtual inputs and outputs. Now on to hardware output, which means whatever audio signal comes into hardware input or virtual inputs can be routed to these hardware outputs A1, A2, and A3, and can also be routed to virtual outputs B1 and B2. Each hardware input has its own volume master fader, where I am going to control with my Android device later in the tutorial. Now setting routing for the virtual input signal that we made earlier. Click on the corresponding channel, which for me is Voicemeeter Auxiliary, and I want it to go to A2 on the master fader, where I set my output device. Now I can hear the audio signal coming through. I hope you can understand these basic functions in Voicemeeter, and you can have a lot of different configurations to suit your preference. Step 4. Setting up OBS audio input to Voicemeeter Auxiliary. Open OBS and go to Setting, and click on the Audio tab. In here, set audio device to Voicemeeter Auxiliary Input. Now all OBS audio recording will come from Voicemeeter into OBS. Now you can set up a microphone using the hardware inputs in Voicemeeter if you prefer. For you to follow along with Step 5, I recommend to you watch the first video so that you may have a basic knowledge of how to create buttons on Touch Editor. In this case, for this tutorial, I will show you how to create a volume fader and set their values. If you have already installed it and following from my last video, you can skip this step. If not, open the Touch Editor. Click on New. And change the layout to Custom. Change the orientation of your device to horizontal if you prefer. And set the resolution of your device. My device res is 1280 by 720. Set the grid to show. Right-click and click on Fader H for horizontal. Resize as shown. Now click the fader. To the left, click on the MIDI tab. In here, on Enable, and set it to value. Set the type to pitch bend. Leave the channel to 1 for now, and the range to 0. Leave all other settings as is. Now select the fader and copy, then paste it. Now drag across to set the second fader. Redo this 3 more times to create 5 faders. Then go back to the second fader and set the channel to 2. And so on. Note, each fader must be set to their own channel. Now click Save and sync to your device, which is shown in my first video, how to set up and load to your device. Step 5, the final step to this tutorial. Setting up MIDI controls on Voicemeeter after creating master faders on your device. To set up MIDI, open Voicemeeter and click on the menu, and go to MIDI mapping. Now, if you were following from my first video, open TouchBridge Server on your computer. Also open TouchOSC on your device. Then go back to Voicemeeter, MIDI mapping. At MIDI input device, select TouchOSC bridge. Now in the mapping section, look for the gain of bus A1, where that's the first master fader. Now click on Learn, and on your device tap the first fader. You will now have the first fader control. Click back the Learn button to deactivate. Now redo the process for the other faders. You can also map mute, solo, MC for the microphone. You also map the routing buttons as well. And you're all done. Well guys, if you followed both of my videos, you should now have more controls in OBS from your device, where you can control scenes, volumes, as well as microphone control on your device for free. I hope this tutorial helps you, and if you have any questions, I am happy to answer them. Don't forget to drop a like or dislike. If dislike, please comment on what I can improve on future video tutorials. That will help out a lot. Thanks again. Until next time, be safe.